In this webinar, I am going to describe how to perform a COBIT-5 assessment of process capability. There are 7 steps to the process assessment method. Step 1 is initiation. Here we confirm the sponsor and ensure that there is agreement on the purpose and scope of the assessment. In Step 1, the assessment sponsor will ensure that the lead assessor has the requisite knowledge and experience to guide the assessment team. In Step 1, lead assessor and the assessment sponsor will agree on the target capability to be assessed. Step 2 is planning. Here we develop an assessment plan that describes all the activities performed in gathering evidence and conducting the assessment. During the planning phase, it would be important to consider the use of an assessment tool, since there is a large amount of information to be gathered. COBIT should not be used as a simple checklist. Each process needs to be assessed, activities identified, and related work practices that are necessary to achieve the selected outcomes. A data collection strategy regarding interviews, meetings, documents uploaded, and screens to be captured should be defined, and samples, templates, and examples prepared in advance of the planned meetings and interviews. Step 3 is briefing. Before the data collection takes place, the assessment team leader must ensure that the assessment team understands the assessment input, process, and output. The assessment team must be briefed on the documented procedures about how to perform the assessment. The assessment input should be defined prior to the data collection, including inputs for capability 2.1 and above. Process instances, including inputs, outputs, and activities based on expected outcomes, should be defined, and enterprise processes used to adapt the COBIT model to specific business needs. Any process instances that include unnecessary activities and work products should be optimized and these unnecessary activities and work products removed. Step 4 is data collection. Here we obtain the objective evidence required for evaluating the processes within scope. Step 5 is data validation. Here we confirm that the evidence collected is objective, sufficient, and consistent. Step 6 is the process attribute rating for each process assessed. A rating is assigned based on the validated data for each process. Step 7, the assessment reporting. The assessment results are documented and reported to the assessment sponsor. The lead assessor will also verify and document the extent of conformance with the ISO 15504 standard and hand over the assessment result, deliverables, and record to the assessment sponsor. With that overview of the process assessment methodology, we will now discuss why a competent lead assessor is required, how to select the right process activities and work products for the assessment, and step by step how to perform an assessment of the process capability and rate that capability. It is a conformant assessment requirement that the assessment sponsor makes certain that the lead assessor and assessment team have the necessary competencies and tools to perform the assessment. We should confirm that COBIT will be used as the assessment reference model, and that the lead assessor has a thorough knowledge of the COBIT processes within scope, as well as the interdependencies and interfaces between each process. COBIT is an integrated process model. The lead assessor should be familiar with the process activities as well as the inputs and outputs exchanged between processes. The lead assessor is expected to know which activities and work products in a process are the most important in delivering the selected outcomes, and to include these in the assessment scope. Whilst there might be a number of process outcomes, they may not all be required. Similarly, there may be a number of process activities described in a process, but not all process activities are going to be required for the selected outcomes. The lead assessor must be able to identify the process instance necessary to deliver the selected outcome. The lead assessor is expected to identify the specific management practices and work products required at capability levels above 1 as these are not explicitly defined in the COBIT framework. For this process and its outcome, we need to define the management practices and work products required at level 2 to manage the performance of the process and the work products. The start of an assessment is with identifying the assessment purpose, which should align with the enterprise business goals. Enterprises have different priorities and goals, and therefore expect different process outcomes. One enterprise may consider service delivery its key priority. Another may be focused on its operational efficiency. An assessment's purpose is to determine the current process capability to deliver the selected outcomes. To identify the processes and activities within scope, cascade enterprise goals to IT goals, and then cascade IT goals to process goals, and select the process outcomes desired. Identify the minimum process activities and work products required to achieve the selected outcomes. Exclude and remove activities and work products that are not needed to achieve the selected outcomes. When scoping the assessment, take into account the context of the organization, the size of the enterprise units, its products and services, the size, criticality and complexity of the services or processes, and the quality characteristics expected. Identify any constraints that may affect the assessment. For example, unavailability of key resources, maximum amount of time available, specific exclusions of process and business units, minimum and maximum coverage, restrictions on the use of outputs, confidentiality agreements. Conclude any confidentiality agreements that may be necessary to protect confidential information shared during the assessment. Next, agree the scope of the assessment and the target capability levels with the sponsor. Remember, each additional capability level increases the level of effort. Make certain that processes are essential and the process instances are lean. The COBIT 5 PAM and Enabling Process Guide should not be used as a simple checklist. The effectiveness of the assessment is dependent on the skills and judgment of the assessors, and in particular the lead assessor, who must have knowledge of both the assessment process and COBIT activities and work products. In other words, not every activity and work product described in the COBIT PAM or process descriptions may be required. There may be activities and work products not described in COBIT that are to be included in the assessment. Which capability level should be the target? Level 0, the process is not implemented or fails to achieve its purpose. Level 1, the process is performed and achieves its purpose. Level 2, the process is managed and results are specified, controlled, and maintained. Level 3, a standard process is defined and used throughout the organization. Level 4, the process is executed consistently within defined limits. Or Level 5, the process is continuously improved to meet current and projected business goals. What is achieved at capability level 1? At capability level 1, each process has a purpose with a number of expected outcomes that are aligned with the enterprise goals. At capability level 1, the selected outcomes are actually achieved. If these are the outcomes, they are aligned with the enterprise goals. These outcomes are achieved through the use of process activities. These process activities have related work products as input and output. What is achieved at capability level 2? At capability level 2, the process outcomes are being achieved, the process activities are being performed, the process work products are being produced, But more importantly, at level 2, the performance is being managed and the work products are being managed. At level 2, the process has capable management who can control the activities and the work products. If we don't need all the process outcomes, then you may not need all the activities. Remove all wasteful expenditure on redundant activities and work products. If these are the outcomes with these activities, but not all of the outcomes are selected, then not all of the process activities are required. Identify the process instance that is necessary to achieve the selected outcome. Identify the related work products as input or output for the necessary process activities required to achieve the selected outcome. For a conformant assessment, it is essential that the assessment input is defined prior to the data collection phase, and it is approved by the sponsor of the assessment or the sponsor's delegated authority. In other words, the assessment scope must be finalized before the assessment commences. When determining the assessment input, start with identifying the process instances required to achieve the selected process outcomes and finalize the scope. Identify the inputs, outputs, and transformation activities of the process instances required to achieve the selected outcomes. And for capability level 2.1 and 2.2, determine the required management practice and work products. Note that these are not described in COBIT. Use a COBIT assessment scoping tool to identify the processes. Start by identifying the enterprise goals. Select one enterprise goal. The first selected enterprise goal identifies just one IT goal. Select another enterprise goal. The second enterprise goal identifies a few more IT goals. The identified IT goals are supported by these COBIT 5 processes. Some or all of these processes should be included in the COBIT assessment. But which activities and work products in these processes are essential to delivering the expected process outcomes? First, we need to select the process outcomes to be achieved. Now we have a few less outcomes to be achieved. And now even fewer outcomes have been selected. Next, we need to identify the activities to be performed for each selected outcome. This tool automatically maps the selected activities to the process and its best practices. Next, we need to identify the work products that support these activities. This we do through looking at intra and inter-process activities. To identify the assessment input, map the enterprise processes to be assessed to the irrelevant COBIT process activities and work products. Establish a correspondence between the enterprise unit's processes specified in the assessment scope and the COBIT processes to be used in the assessment. Adapt the COBIT reference model to the enterprise's needs. Use a COBIT assessment tool to help map enterprise process activities to process activities. The tool records how COBIT process activities map to the enterprise process activities, or how the COBIT process activities map to other process frameworks. Include in the assessment input any process activities and work products that are part of an enterprise process, but not part of a COBIT process. Sometimes it's necessary to add to the assessment activities that are not part of a COBIT process. For example, there may be activities or work products of the enterprise or from another framework. Next, we should prepare templates and examples for the work products and practices expected. Participants in the assessment will be able to more easily recognize the type of evidence required if a template or sample is available as a reference. Use the COBIT assessment tool to distribute these templates or samples. Next, select assessment participants, clarify responsibilities, and assign tasks. Identify the sponsor, process owner, process participant, lead assessor, assessors, local coordinator, and other participants. Step 2 is the planning phase. Planning the assessment involves the development of an assessment plan that describes all activities performed in gathering evidence and conducting the assessment. Because of the size of this activity, decide on a tool to be used to support the assessment. Use the tool to plan the assessment activities and schedule the tasks. Document the assessment procedures. Document the data collection strategy. Assign responsibilities to roles. Use the tool to gather data. Collate and store the evidence. And assign ratings to the processes. Here, the COBIT assessment tool has been used to plan and schedule tasks, assign tasks to roles for the collection or review of evidence. Here, a responsible role with an assigned task signs in to complete the task under the My Issues tab. The role will update the record for the assigned activity. A role can add notes, documents or files, or captured screens. Step 3 is briefing the team. Brief the assessment team and provide training if necessary about how to perform the assessments, and do this prior to the start of the collection of data. Before the data collection takes place, the assessment team leader must ensure that the assessment team understands the assessment input, process, and output. The assessment input is defined prior to data collection and includes inputs for 2.1 and above. Process instances, the inputs, outputs, and activities based on outcomes are identified. COBIT should not be used as a simple checklist. The COBIT model should be adapted to the enterprise processes. Unnecessary process instances, activities, and work products should be removed. The assessment team should be briefed on the documented procedures about how to perform the assessments, and these procedures should be made available to team members. Step 4 is data collection. Follow the documented data collection strategy regarding interviews, meetings, document uploads, and screens captured. Data should be collected in a systematic manner using an explicitly identified strategy and technique that is easily demonstrable. The approach to data collection must be clearly documented and must be possible to demonstrate through the material retained that it was followed. All evidence collected should be easily associated with each process involved in the assessment. Use a central repository for the collected evidence. Meet and interview the process owners and process participants. Request process owners and process participants to prepare and submit evidence supporting the activities they performed. And agree with the sponsor the length of time available for data collection. Store the collected evidence with the activities performed in each process to maintain traceability between the evidence and the activity of a specific process. Systematically collecting data is a key element of the assessment process. Depending on the processes to be reviewed, there's potentially a large amount of data to be collected. Maintain traceability of collected evidence to its source. Consider what evidence is required and the type of evidence that would be best. If AP over 03 the managed enterprise architecture processes to be assessed, examine evidence that the activities and work products are being performed. Examine each work product and each activity in the process instance that is required to achieve the process outcome. Examine each process activity and work product and rate the attribute as either not achieved, partially achieved, largely achieved, or fully achieved. Note that an assessment tool makes reviewing the evidence collected for each process a lot easier. Evidence to review may include the notes made in the tool against the process activity, documents uploaded as evidence of the activity being performed, screen captures stored in the tool as evidence of an activity being performed. Each activity and work product is rated on the strength of the objective evidence available. Add any assessor comments regarding the assessment made to assist any subsequent review of the rating. Step 5 is data validation. Validate that the evidence is objective and sufficient to cover the scope and purpose of the assessment, and the data as a whole are consistent. Prepare for the assessment by first reviewing the process instances to be evaluated. Every process comprises one or more instances. A process instance achieves one or more specific outcomes. It is useful to look to the outcomes and outputs of a process. Identify the most appropriate instances, the activities, and the related work products. Here we identify a process instance, the activities of the process that are required to achieve the selected process outcome. Step 6 is assessment rating. For level 1, systematically collect and record evidence of process instance of process within scope being performed. At level 1, the extent to which the process purpose is achieved is determined. Work products that are input are identified, work products that are output are identified, and actions taken to transform input work products to output work products are identified. It's important to evaluate whether the selected process outcomes have been actually achieved. Typical planned outcomes for APO03 Managed Enterprise Architecture are listed. Examine evidence that the outcomes have been achieved. To determine if the selected outcomes have been achieved, use the assessment tool to review uploaded supporting documents or reports, review attached screen captures recording evidence and supporting information, review notes written by the person responsible, click any links supplied to reach supporting material. For process attribute 1.1, evaluate the work products that are input. Confirm that identified input work products are part of the required process instances. Evaluate the work products that are output. Confirm that the identified output work products are part of the required process instances. Evaluate actions that transform inputs into outputs. Confirm that identified actions are essential to the required process instances. For APO3, determine which activities deliver which outcomes. To assess level 2.1 and 2.2, review systematically collected and recorded evidence of performance management and work product management of process instances for processes within scope. Measure the extent to which the performance of the process is managed, and measure the extent to which the work products produced by the process are appropriately managed. Review details about performance management in the wiki, including objectives of the performance of the process being planned and monitored, performance of the process being adjusted to meet the plans, responsibilities and authorities for performing the process defined, assigned and communicated, resources and information necessary for performing the process identified, made available, allocated and used. Interfaces between involved parties are managed to ensure effective communication and clear assignments. Review uploaded information to the knowledge base and templates attached to the documents for work product management and version control details. To assess levels 3.1 and 3.2, review systematically collected and recorded evidence of process definition and process deployment for each process instance of processes within scope. Measure the extent to which a standard process is maintained to support the deployment of the defined process, and measure the extent to which the standard process is effectively deployed as a defined process to achieve its process outcomes. To assess capability level 3.1, review the process definitions, possibly described in a wiki, and the supporting information and documents maintained in a knowledge base. To assess capability level 3.2, process deployment across business units is demonstrated by activities being evidenced as being performed in each business unit within scope. Assess whether the defined process is deployed based on tailored standard processes. Defined roles, responsibilities and authorities are assigned and communicated. Personnel performing the defined process are competent on the basis of appropriate education, training and experience. Required resources and information necessary are made available, allocated and used. Required infrastructure and work environment are made available, managed and maintained. Appropriate data are collected and analyzed as a basis for understanding the behavior affecting the process, demonstrating the suitability and effectiveness of the process, and evaluate where continuous improvement of the process can be made. It's important to maintain cross-references to the evidence collected of processes being performed. Map the objective evidence to the specific COBIT process activity cross-reference. It's important to verify the fulfillment of the evidentiary requirements for the assessment class, be that Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3. Assessors should ensure that there is sufficient evidence for the results of the assessment to be trusted. Evidence can be either in the form of direct evidence, such as a document or an outcome, or indirect, such as plans to produce particular outcomes. In general, the primary source of evidence will come from interviews, which will be confirmed through an examination of work products, and from best practices for the process being assessed to see whether the process outcomes are being achieved. Validate that the collected data is suitable evidence. Review the collected evidence. Make notes requesting clarification if required from the process owners and process participants. Assign a rating for each process attribute up to the highest capability level within scope. Maintain traceability between the objective evidence and the process attribute rating assigned. Here the objective evidence is associated with the process attribute. Report the results of the assessment. Use a dashboard to communicate the assessment results to the assessment sponsor. Consider and advise the sponsor on the risks associated with not achieving specific capability levels, such as failure of a process to work or be effective, the importance of the process to the enterprise, which will have been considered when scoping the assessment, the risk associated with various levels of process capabilities not being achieved. The lead assessor should verify and document the extent of conformance with the ISO 15504 standard. Then the lead assessor should hand over the assessment result, deliverables, and the assessment record to the assessment sponsor. Contact us for more information about the RTGN COVID-5 assessment tool and the next COVID-5 assessment course and exam.